What drives someone to join the Islamic State? Some religious leaders in Jordan think they have the answer. As Africa's energy production soars, so does its oil and natural gas reserves. And Star Wars news, as well as big news about a sequel to one of the highest-grossing films of all time. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Crushing the Islamic State terrorist group and its affiliates such as Boko Haram is a top priority of multiple world leaders. Jordanians are rallying around its government's fight against the Islamic extremists, but religious leaders warn that force alone will not slow the growth of the militant group. VOA's Heather Maddox spoke with religious leaders in Jordan working to stop the spread of extremist ideology.
Young people in the Jordanian capital, Amman, say they don't understand the attraction to the militant group that calls itself the Islamic State. Islamic State fighters must be paid well, they say. Otherwise, who would join?
Those people think they are better than other Muslims, but the truth is we have a poor economy and they just have higher salaries. We have high unemployment, and they pay maybe 1,000 dinars when the average salary in Amman is 300 dinars. It's a 700 dinar difference, so some people are attracted to them.
But religious leaders say it's definitely more than just money that draws young people to extremist groups. Abdel Salem Fendi, the imam of Amman's Salman El Asaf Mosque, says some societies nurture terrorism and extremism by hindering moderate Islamic groups.
In some societies, this is explicit and successful in driving people away from moderate Islam. It is these societies that seek to defame the image of Islam.
Other religious leaders say there are even more fundamental problems driving people towards extremism. Nimr al-Asaf is the former chair of the Islamic Action Front, the political wing of the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, a religious and political organization that is influential in the government, but also in opposition. He says militant extremists, like the Islamic State, will continue to attract recruits as long as people feel they are denied social justice.
Democracy, justice, and freedom is the real way to fight these flare-ups and to fight extremism, wherever it is. Because when people feel justice, they don't need to rise up against anything. And because generally people like to live in peace.
Al-Asaf says political reform must be coupled with religious reform to slow the growth of the extremist group. He says religious leaders should increase the availability of Islamic education because many of those recruits have simply been taught wrong.
There should be an amnesty for the people who withdraw from this organization and also who will give themselves up peacefully. And they should go through an educational program, because I honestly believe that some of those people are misguided.
The patriotic youth in this park, however, are less forgiving, saying the only thing to be done is to protect the borders and fight back against the Islamic State abroad.
They are insane people. They don't know right from wrong, and they think that if they join the Islamic State, they can do whatever they wish.
Families here say they don't personally know anyone drawn to extremism, and many guess it's not just money and social issues driving people towards the Islamic State. It could be just that a criminal organization, they say, attracts criminal minds. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Amman, Jordan.
Well, video of grotesque scenes, executions, and other atrocities are becoming almost commonplace on social media. Many have come to be associated with the Islamic State group. But as Iraqi forces and Shia militias continue their push to retake territory, new videos are popping up. VOA's Jeff Selden has more on a new narrative that is proving equally brutal. We warn you, some of the images are disturbing.
Video of a young boy about to be executed for alleged cooperation with the Islamic State. Just a small sample of what Iraq's Shia militias are posting online, often using their mobile phones.
Fighters are just taking this imagery and putting it up, where they wish to kind of demonstrate that they are tough, that they can be just as brutal as the ISIS people, and that they're not messing around.
University of Maryland researcher Philip Smythe has been following the online activities of Iraq's Shia militias.
In the past couple of months, since about fall of 2014, there's been a real upsurge in terms of quite brutal imagery.
U.S. officials say the videos, which are difficult to authenticate, are obviously very concerning. And an accurate count is hard to come by, with new videos being posted every day. For the Shia militias, the videos help rally support while striking fear in anyone who might oppose them. For individuals, it's a quick and easy way to snap a war trophy or build an online resume.
If I'm a guy who just wants to join a militia, there's the strong possibility that I want to get a shot with this. I want to show that, hey, I showed ISIS something. You know, what did you do? I have a picture. I can put it right up on Facebook.
Smythe says, for now, there seems to be little pushback from top militia officials. And as Iraqi forces and Shia militias continue their advance, it remains to be seen how much warnings from Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi will resonate.
There are infiltrators who want to tarnish our victories by committing crimes and serious violations against the security and property of people. Therefore, we have issued strict orders to the security forces, police and army commanders, and Hashid al-Shaabi commanders.
The U.S. has already taken action, says State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki.
We have withheld assistance from certain Iraqi units on the basis of credible information in the past.
But the Shia militias are a different matter, many of them answering to Iran. The top U.S. military official told lawmakers it's something that worries him.
When they recapture lost territory, whether they engage in acts of retribution and ethnic cleansing.
Researchers like Philip Smythe say the story being told by Iraq's mobile phones is quite clear.
It says that we're dealing with a very brutal, very nasty environment. And it also says that it doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon.
Each video, a new and gruesome salvo in a fight to show which side is tougher. Jeff Selden, VOA News, Washington.
Well, 2 days of clashes between Islamic State militants and Libya Dawn, the fighters loyal to a government based in Tripoli, have sent people fleeing the coastal city of Sirte on Monday. Families fearing more violence were seen packing into cars and heading westward along the coastal town of Misrata. On Sunday, one person was killed when a car bomb exploded in a suburb of Misrata city. The device was detonated in front of a camp of a faction called 166 Battalion, which has been tasked with fighting Islamic State militants in Sirte. Groups of Islamic militants who have declared their loyalty to Islamic State over the past 6 months have claimed responsibility for several high-profile attacks in what appears to be an intensifying campaign. In West Africa, Boko Haram fighters attacked a village in Chad on Sunday, killing one person. Boko Haram, which is seeking to curb an Islamic emirate out of northeastern Nigeria, has expanded its zone of operations over the past year, but attacks on Chadian territory remain rare. The militant group raided nearby Nkububu on the shores of Lake Chad last month in the group's first known lethal attack on Chadian soil. Chad's military has spearheaded an operation by Nigeria's neighbors against the insurgency, which has killed thousands and which last week pledged its allegiance to the Islamic State. Well, Nigeria's main opposition vice presidential candidate, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, says it's an absolutely outrageous thing that the Nigerian army, one of the finest in Africa, has been unable to defeat Boko Haram. Mr. Osinbajo of the All Progressives Congress, APC, who is the running mate of the former military head of state Muhammadu Buhari, spoke to VOA's Bello Galadanchi after he addressed Nigerians in the diaspora during a town hall meeting in the cities of Baltimore and Silver Spring in the state of Maryland.
The Nigerian army, which, as I've said elsewhere, is one of the finest armies in the world, and they've proved themselves at various theaters of war. They've proved themselves in peacekeeping, proved themselves in war, in civil conflict, not just locally, but all over the world, and even in Africa.
Well, Nigerians are heading to the polls on March the 28th to choose a president. Incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan of the ruling People's Democratic Party faces Muhammadu Buhari of All Progressives Congress. Well, Sierra Leone's Vice President Samuel Sam Sumana has abandoned his house in Freetown and requested asylum at the U.S. Embassy after soldiers surrounded his home on Saturday. Some security guards and drivers could be seen outside the Vice President's compound. Sam Sumana told Reuters that he and his wife fled their house and has reached a secret location while awaiting to hear back from the U.S. ambassador. A U.S. Embassy spokesperson says they are aware of the situation but declined to make any further comment. Well, Liberians observed Decoration Day last week when they visited cemeteries to clean their graves of dead relatives and spend time with the departed. But Ebola changed the observance this year. Some people's relatives have no graves. They were cremated to stem the Ebola epidemic. Bino Mushla files from Margibi County with reporting from Prince Collins.
Joe F. Kaisua died a year ago of Ebola. His sister still can't believe it. Her pain was too overwhelming to say anything. His son, Friday Kaisua, found a few words.
What I can say, I'm happy to be able to stay, to come this morning to be able to at least dug with my father's grave. Because it's a happy day for me because for us, we never expected him to have a grave.
On Decoration Day, Liberians commemorate their lost ones, visit and clean their graves. This year the day stirred the pain of the Ebola epidemic that has taken the lives of almost 10,000 people in West Africa, including more than 4,000 in Liberia in the past year. At Harbilt Cemetery in Margibi County, some people quietly stood around tombs, but others collapsed to the ground. They did not have enough time to digest the loss, says Kortu Kwalar, a pastor of the community.
Today's Memorial Day is a bit different in that there are others who have died of Ebola and the death was so sudden. We see that these people die one after another in their large number. And so coming to decorate or to remember them today is so saddening.
Emma David had no place to go to remember. Her husband was cremated after dying in an Ebola treatment facility. She did not know what happened to his ashes.
He was taken to the ETU. After 4 days, the court informed me that he had passed. I asked for a party. I wanted to bury him, at least have a grave to show to my children that today I could go and take away. That me and my children could carry around with my family. But no way. I did not receive a party. I did not see a party for the day he was taken.
The shelves of their little shop in front of their house are empty. Samuel C. David had been the breadwinner of the family of 8. Emma David's sisters came to help fill the emptiness. David says she might soon create her own place to commemorate her husband and put some flowers, but not today. Benno Müchler with Prince Collins, VOA News, Margibi County.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, coming up, a Ugandan social activist is nominated for the 2015 Nobel Peace Prize. We'll be right back.
Nigeria heads to the polls March 28th for a landmark election. What happens there matters throughout Africa. Turn to Voice of America for the facts. VOA reporters are in Nigeria and surrounding countries covering the campaigns and the issues and counting down to the March 28th election and beyond. Special Nigeria Decides 2015 coverage is underway now. A commitment to Africa from Voice of America.
Welcome back. Energy production in African nations has ballooned in recent decades, with proven oil and natural gas reserves more than doubling in the past 30 years. The topic was debated recently here in Washington. Here's VOA's Caroline Turner.
New discoveries across Africa, including natural gas off the East African coast, deep water oil in Upper West Africa, and new oil reserves in Kenya and Uganda, are changing the continent's energy markets. Many new discoveries are being made by smaller firms which have less capital for investment. Recent pullbacks in energy prices is forcing many explorations to be cut back. Former International Energy Coordinator for the U.S. State Department, David Goldwyn, outlined in his book, Energy and Security, the challenges presented by a low oil price cycle where a lot of projects are chasing investment dollars. He says donor governments need to make transparency and accountability a priority and build regulations and infrastructure early to prevent corruption.
On the positive side, I shout out to the IFC's Oil Linkages Program, which helps link SMEs to countries. And I think Anadarko and has a relationship with this Pixera company in Mozambique, which is a good example of how it can bring SMEs into the process. On the negative side, I would have to call out Tanzania and Mozambique. We're both talking now about new terms, adverse than what they had before, wanting 25% of all the gas that's produced to be used for domestic purposes, which is probably more than they need. So they are actually making the terms worse just at the time when they are in a less competitive position.
Producer governments and international financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank are being forced to play a larger role in ensuring that the development of energy reserves spurs economic growth. One subject debated was petroleum revenue management. A lot more attention is now being focused on the distribution of money once revenues are collected and ensuring it benefits the society. Oil and mineral consultant Charles McPherson explained how to prevent corruption of energy exploration funding.
There's enormous potential in all these sub-Saharan African countries, but one of the big issues is this transparency and corruption issue. And a lot of the countries are paying explicit attention to it, aided and abetted by or encouraged by civil society. And transparency language and anti-corruption language is being written into both legislation and into contracts themselves in a very explicit way that it wasn't before.
The U.S. African Development Foundation is unique in that it only funds Africans living and working in Africa. They sponsor Power Africa, which is comprised of 12 U.S. government agencies working with 90 partners to provide grants to entrepreneurs.
We have now funded 28 African SMEs who are providing renewable energy solutions to marginalized and underserved groups in Africa. We are working in 6 countries and look forward to expanding this later in 2015, and we'll be welcoming more of these African small businesses who are actually using biofuels, solar, hydro, and other solutions to reach people beyond the grid.
In Washington, the debate has changed to focus on how donor nations can build in regulations and transparency into their programs to prevent corruption. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, Victor Ochen is a 33-year-old Ugandan social activist who works with victims of the war against the Lord's Resistance Army. In February, he received the news that he, together with his organization, the Africa Youth Initiative Network, had been nominated for the 2015 Nobel Peace Prize. Speaking to VOA's Sergio Rusblatt, Ochen explained what drives him.
We needed the world to understand the call and the plea and the wishes for the people who have suffered the violations. Oftentimes, so much attention is paid to the perpetrators more than the attention and services and responses given to the victims. Majority of my age mates did not make it. They died in the struggle, either the struggle to run away from being abducted, or they died in the struggle to protect their families, or they died in the struggle to escape from captivity.
Well, Ochen is only the second Ugandan to be ever nominated for the prize and the youngest on the African continent. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Save the date. Now, big announcement from Disney about movie sequels. We'll be right back.
وفكر المصريين
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Now, take out your calendars and save the date. The J.J. Abrams directed 7th installment in the Star Wars series, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, opens this year on December the 18th. Disney also announced that it will release the 8th installment in the Star Wars film series on May the 26th, 2017. It was also revealed on Saturday that a spin-off from the franchise, already announced to star Felicity Jones, will be called Rogue One and will be released on December 2016. Rogue One will be a stand-alone Star Wars film. Well, and there is more from Disney news. There is more big news from Disney. The company officially announced plans for a sequel to the 2013 blockbuster animated film Frozen. A release date and production details for Frozen 2 have not yet been announced. Frozen is currently ranked as the 5th highest grossing film of all time, having taken in over $1 billion at the global box office, according to boxofficemojo.com. It won the 2 Oscars in 2014, the Best Animated Feature Film and the Best Original Song for the hit Let It Go. Well, Lacey Schwartz grew up in an upper-middle-class Jewish family in upstate New York, where almost everyone she knew was white. She assumed that she was as well. Her recent documentary, Little White Lie, tells the story of how she uncovered the secret of her true racial background. VOA's Caroline Weaver tells us more.
I grew up in a world with synagogue, Hebrew school, bar mitzvahs. So it never occurred to me that I was passing. I actually grew up believing I was white.
In Little White Lie, Lacey Schwartz tells of growing up in a mostly white community in Woodstock, New York. She sometimes wondered why her skin was darker, the first time when a nursery school classmate remarked on it.
That's the earliest memory I have of feeling different. It was embarrassing to be singled out, and it made me feel ugly. When I told my parents what had happened, my father pulled out an old photo album and told me I took after his great-grandfather, who was Sicilian.
And I saw pictures, and I said, oh, Lace looks like Robert's grandfather.
I didn't realize that I was biracial until I was 18.
What made you realize it?
I think, one of the biggest things in my story and in this film is about the power of denial. And when I was making the film, I was very interested in kind of looking at what is the timeline of denial? What is the anatomy of denial?
It was only in college, when the Black Student Union invited her to join, that the truth began to dawn on her.
For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. And somehow, I just knew that black was who I was. Of course, that meant that there was something my parents weren't telling me.
Lacey came to me and said, we have to talk. It was like, oh no, I'm scared.
Schwartz's mother admitted her affair with a black family friend. Even Schwartz's father had not allowed himself to know the truth.
I don't think I was experiencing loss at that time, but I certainly had a fear of, in particular, losing my father. If we talked about the fact that he wasn't my biological father, I think I was really feeling, yes, confusion, but also relief at knowing why I looked the way I did and where I came from.
Schwartz says that audiences of all backgrounds relate to the film.
We really thought it was important that we make sure we reach all different audiences. You know, go to black film festivals, go to Jewish film festivals, documentary film festivals, just to show that really this film is about race, and certainly it has to do with my Jewish identity, but it's really about family secrets, and anyone can relate and connect to that.
Little White Lie will air on American Public Television next month. Carolyn Weaver, VOA News, New York.
Well, it's time for our Monday Sports Report, and here's Sonny Young with the sunny side of sports. Hello, Sonny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Let's begin in South Africa's scenic city of Cape Town. That's where about 1,200 mountain bike riders from all over the world gathered for the start of the Cape Epic Race. During the challenging 8-day event, the riders will cover almost 740 kilometers with climbs totaling nearly 16,000 meters. Under the race format, the riders compete in two-person teams. The opening 20-kilometer prologue took them 600 meters above Cape Town to the ominously named but picturesque Dead Man's Tree before they descended to the finish line. Still in Cape Town, let's give a sunny side of sports salute to Georgina Haywood, who celebrated her 100th birthday over the weekend in high-flying fashion.
I said it was a wonderful experience to be able to look around and see the earth below me.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rob. Happy birthday to you.
Yes, hip, hip, hooray for 100-year-old Georgina Haywood, whose tandem skydive also raised money to buy life jackets for volunteers at South Africa's National Sea Rescue Institute. I'm Sonny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sonny. That's our show for today. Have a good night. We are able to touch on things that are important to people on an everyday basis. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. In a lively half hour, news, sports, health, lifestyle information, comments from our viewers. Africa 54, the best for Africa, about Africa. Join us only on VOA.